I love Genshin Impact and its designs, but there's a reason why I do. The designs are carefully crafted to fit in the world or specific region they are from. Some regions do this better than others, but I wanted to talk about how important character design is not just for visual appearance of a character, but helping immerse the player into the fantasy world of Teyvat. I'll start with the most simple yet powerful example I can think of. The star-shaped pupil. It's small, it's subtle, but it immediately tells us where that character is from. Conria. Without a detail like this, just about anyone could be from Conria, but now we have a reason to get excited whenever we encounter a character with this pupil in the story. I want to talk about my favorite one in terms of character design shaping Teyvat being Inazuma. Without a doubt, you can take a small glance at any of the Inazuma cast and know they are from this region. Kazuha was our introduction to the region, and what a great one he was. While I didn't entirely care for the 1.6 tournament quest that branched us into Inazuma, learning about Kazuha and his story was crucial to setting up the stage. The next characters we meet include Toma, Yoimiya, Ayaka, and Sayu, who all embody the same Inazuman style very well, but in different ways. I love how Ayaka has a breastplate and some armor on her sides. I like that Toma has some armor and fire details. I love how Yoimiya embodies Japanese summer festivals and even has tattoos. I like how Sayu has the Tanuki theme going on. The next batch of characters we got included was the Archon herself, who wears a kimono, albeit short, and has beautiful patterns alongside her shoulder armor piece. We then get to see Kujusara, who's a Tengu with a cool looking mask, and Yaemiko, who embodies that of a shrine maiden. The reason why I feel Inazuma characters tie so well to Inazuma, a Japanese-inspired fantasy region, is that a lot of the characters are yokai. Kirara is a Nekomata yokai, Ito is an Oni, Yaemiko is a Kitsune, Mizuki is a Baku. While there are plenty of human characters in this region, I love that they made playable characters that resemble that of a yokai. Not only are they important to Japan, but they're important to Inazuma too. We get to meet a trapped Tanuki statue, ghosts, the blue Oni, etc. Sure, the designers could have just made human characters for the region that wore Japanese kimonos and such, but they went a step further, and that's why I love it. Even Chiori, who we met much later in the game, still calls to her Inazuma ties with her fashion choices despite living in Fontaine. If all these characters lacked their yokai features or wore typical fantasy outfits, they would feel very out of place in these beautiful crafted islands. What Genshin excels at is not just their music, but their landscaping. I was visiting a replica shrine in Hawaii and I noticed this symbol on the wall. Even the electro symbol of Genshin calls back to Japanese culture. So when we see characters who have this symbol or something similar on their character, it just ties things up in such a nice little bow. This is why character design is so important beyond just visual appeal. You want to make sure it makes sense for the setting. And now let me give you an example of a region that was not as successful in my opinion. This comes to no surprise, but I do not think Natlan was very successful in its character designs. You can see some core themes within its characters that are actually pretty cool, but they're quite neglectful to the setting they are in. Natlan is a nation of Pyro, and their Archon is the god of war. The nation is under a constant war against the Abyss, as their ley lines never recovered from the Cataclysm. Inazuma, a region that also had a war with the Vision Hunt Decree, but its characters were wearing far more protective armor than Natlan's. I think the biggest blunder of every single character in Natlan are the Night Soul markings. When activated, they have a beautiful, shimmering color that resemble the character's vision, but when they aren't, they're slightly tanner than the character's skin. Normally this would not be an issue, except you can barely see it. There are two ways the designers could have solved this issue. One, they could have made the skin tone darker so that these marks are easier to see even when not activated. Or two, they could make the markings a darker color even when not activated, similar to a tattoo. Another reason Natlan Cast struggles to fit into the world of Teyvat is its lack of cohesiveness. I understand that different tribes will have different strengths and attributes, which will allow for some diversity. That's cool. What's not is the dissonance that occurs when you look at their designs. Kanish, Maoika, and even Shilonin look very modern and thus out of place in a fantasy world. Individually, Kanish's pixel art is cool, and I like Maoika's motorcycle. I think that's pretty cool too. The issue is that the setting doesn't reflect this in the characters. I've talked about this in other videos critiquing Natlan, but the tech these characters have do not reflect the tech in their environment. We only get a piece of that in the summer resort area that was released in 5.8. We got the big DJ stage that was finally a genuine piece of tech that went into the environment, but we lacked that for the entirety of version 5. I know many people also disliked how colorful Natlan was, but I actually don't mind that part at all. I think by either removing the crazy tech of a DJ, a chunky gun, or motorcycles from the characters, that could solve the problem. Or you can add these tech elements into the world like the DJ set in 5.8. The only problem is the rest of Natlan's region feels out of place, and the NPCs do a much better job fitting into the environment than the playable characters do. When you look at the Natlan cast, I could guess that some of these characters belong to other regions completely. We don't get the sense of cohesion that other regions like Inazuma does so strongly. Someone pointed out to me that Veresa's design frustrated them because it takes inspiration from Gyaru cutesy Japanese fashion. Why the heck is she in Natlan then? Granted, she wouldn't fit well into Inazuma with how she was designed, but she still is very out of place in Natlan. Moving to other nations, I was worried when Fontaine was scheduled to be released. Mondstadt and Fontaine both draw their inspiration from Europe. Mondstadt, I believe, embodies multiple places in Europe, while Fontaine focuses mainly on France. I worried that the characters would blend together and it would be hard to determine who's from Mondstadt and who's from Fontaine, but my worries were proven to be unnecessary. The Fontaine cast and the Mondstadt cast have distinct differences. I think this was thanks to not only the difference in European cultures they drew from, but they carefully crafted professions and hobbies for these characters. Fontaine has magicians, duelists, prison guards, judges, etc. Mondstadt has knights, alchemists, wine owners, adventurers, etc. These sub-themes allow the designs to be different from each other while still embodying the region they are from. I do think these two regions are the most similar, but by making Fontaine use a bunch of steampunk-like elements, that really helps set it apart from the windmills of Mondstadt. Sumeru's regions and design blew me away. I know that many of the designs had their flaws and are not perfect, but I cannot tell you how much I loved Candace and Sino's design especially. They captured the desert environment well, and seeing the Egyptians' inspirations made me really happy. Then you go into the forest part of Sumeru and you have forest rangers, scholars, and the one dancer who's keeping the spirit of the arts alive. Having a contradicting character in Nilo was not only important for the story, but it helped shape the setting. We got to see the arts tucked away in the Grand Bazaar while the academics took over life in the city. If we didn't have a character like Nilo, we could say goodbye to that importance, or at least it would have not been nearly as impactful if it was just a bunch of NPCs on a stage. Now we are in Nod Cry, a place that wasn't in the original development map. The characters we have been introduced to so far seem to embody the region they are in. We have Aino's craft shop with parts scattered everywhere, and even her design shows some of it with a screw tied into her hair, the tail, and her unique heart symbol. Inef is a freaking robot made by Aino in that same workshop. Talk about fantastic immersion. Llama is from the Frostmoon Science and wears a more elegant and revealing clothing as the Moon Chanter. I love that she has deer antlers so we can see many deers and statues of deer all around the island. Flynn's we don't know too much about yet, as I'm writing this before he's released, but as a Lightkeeper he's oddly wearing all black from head to toe. You'll find him in the graveyard, and if we consider black is worn at funerals, perhaps that was their angle with it. Nod Cry is similar to Natlan in that there's multiple tribes, or in Nod Cry's case, factions. They're all going to have their distinct defining features that tie them to their factions, but they should be prepared to handle the cult of being on Snezhnai's border. Llama and Yehoda's designs are the first two that come to mind that don't really fit the weather part of the setting. It's a bit jarring for them to show up with so much skin, and the same could be said if Natlan's characters were all bundled up. I want to discuss the characters that are not native to Teyvat next. They go out of their way to ensure that they look alien. Skirk is not a descender, but she's an alien to this world. Her design reflects that in her abyssal powers since she has those crystal-like limbs. The biggest indicator of this was not a character, but actually a boss design of the all-devouring narwhal. Not only did it look like something that didn't belong in Teyvat's Primordial Sea, but the music for this boss fight was unlike anything we had heard in Genshin OSTs so far. The travelers themselves stick out with their odd clothing, not to mention Paimon, who's always with them. She definitely has her set of mysteries, and it's peculiar why very little characters question Paimon's presence. I hope I was able to articulate my point as to why character designs are so much more than just their visual appeal. They are the final building block in world building that helps immerse us, the player, into Teyvat. It's why when a design doesn't make sense, it can be very jarring, sparking debates online. We have to remember that personally liking a design doesn't automatically make it good in the setting it's from. For example, I love Veresa's design very much, but I can also understand that she doesn't fit with Natlin all that well. Please feel free to share your thoughts below, just make sure to do so respectfully. If you like gacha related content, I have plenty you can watch next, including those that also dabble in character design. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time.